Basque country is a community which has gained international recognition for their innovation capacity when complemented with a top-level research network. Entrepreneurship and the creation of new companies become key elements for said innovation. Europe has a strong technological dependence on other ecosystems, such as the American or the Israeli, and the creation of its own technology is a challenge which should be given a decisive response. To discuss about this topic, we will invite Aitor Urzelai from the Basque government, Carlos Alberto Silva from Sonae Investment Management, Sandra Wiesbeck from the cluster IT Security Bayern, Miranda Ward from Ceylon, and the panel will be led by Urko Zurutuza from Mondragón University. They will analyze the major challenges from entrepreneurship and for the creation of technology in a totally globalized sector where the most outstanding competitors are highly qualified and strongly funded.
Thank you very much, Alait. So first of all, thank you, the organization, for all this. You know, I think that today is one of the perfect days to perform a cyber attack against the Basque country, because all of the security professionals are here and not working on their industry, right? Anyway, let me first introduce our attendees. So Aitor Urzelai is the Director of Entrepreneurship, Innovation and Information Society of the Department of Economic and Development and Infrastructures of the Basque government since 2013. Previously, he was the General Manager at MIK, which is the Mondragón Innovation and Knowledge, and also member of the Board of Directors of the Faculty of Business Studies at Mondragón University. Carlos Alberto Silva, Executive Board Member and CFO at the Sonae Investment Management. He heads the investment activities in the telecom technology and cybersecurity. Miranda Ward, Director of Communications. Miranda looks after all the things of communications, PR, and marketing at Ceylon. Her background is in corporate communications, on reputation and media. Miranda advises our startups on how to refine brand messaging and communicate their product to their target audiences. And Sandra Wiesbeck. Sandra has been the CEO of the Bavarian IT Security Cluster since 2013. Her task is to promote the IT security, IT safety, and data protection through the events and networking of science and industry. She's also the manager of the cluster, role that she has held since 2007. And me, myself, so many of you know me, but I'm Urko Zurutuza. I'm from Mondragón University, and I'm the manager of the Data Analytics and Cybersecurity Research Group. And our group is one of the co-founders of the National Network of Excellence of Cybersecurity Research, RENIC at the Spanish level. So after introductions, let's start with a nice discussion, right? First of all, I would like really to ask to Carlos in regards that, well, we all know that Sonae bought the 71 SEC in 2014. And then 4 years later, they bought Nextel. So my question is, why you bought those two companies? How you get to know about those two companies? And the third one, I will make you the three of them continuously. Should we be afraid of any other investments in the Basque country?
Well, the main reason is simple. It's basically because of the food. The food is great in the Basque country, so it happens that fortunately here in this region you also have very good companies in cybersecurity, and I would take the opportunity to thank you for the invitation, and of course congratulate you for such an event. It's really amazing to be here and having made the investments that we've done. So I think it makes sense for me to frame our perspective as an investor. So the way we see it in Europe is there's a perfect storm for investing in cybersecurity. That's the way we see it. There are several reasons. The main ones is, so digital transformation is growing, is expanding to all verticals. So industry is one that, of course, in this region you are very aware of. I think the other point that I would like to stress is that this is a sector where new attack vectors are emerging on a continuous basis. So that means newer solutions will be required continuously. So that means new technologies need to be developed. There's an important factor as well, which is Europe, and the point was already stressed here, we need trusted technology. And Europe is lagging versus US, and is lagging in terms of spending, is lagging in terms of investment. And we think there's a very interesting opportunity here, which is with the increasing geopolitical tensions, Europe, it's our perspective, will ask more and more trusted technology. So that's an opportunity, the way we see it. And last but not least, and that point was already raised here several times, is the talent. So there's a lack of talent, there's a growing demand, and at the same time, even if we put all the efforts we think it makes sense in the talent, we will need more and more technology to automate everything. So these are the 4 main points I would like to bring, because they are the ones guiding us on our investment vision. And as a result of this, we see the market growing, and we see valuations for the assets very solid. So this is sort of setting the scene. So why did we invest in S21sec and Nextel? So our investment strategy is twofold. On one side, we see a very strong opportunity in services. We think it makes sense to have more and more bigger companies in the services arena. And here we have a buy and build approach. So we've started with S21sec. We then acquired Nextel, and now we are merging those 2 companies. As up to now, we already have one of the largest, even though it's small, but one of the largest pure players in the cybersecurity. So the largest in Iberia, but one of the largest, the most relevant one, one of the most relevant ones in Europe, which is very interesting and based here in the Basque Country. But also we invest with minority stakes in tech companies, and for this, we actually leverage the expertise we have in S21sec and Nextel, because they are continuously looking for new solutions, new tech solutions to differentiate their services and to complement their own platforms. And this feeds us in terms of criteria to go after companies working on those spaces, which typically are emerging spaces. On one side. On the other side is whenever we approach these companies, we have an advantage, because on one side we have the expertise, but we also have the go-to-market. So we say, look, we have this player. They can be your channel for this technology. And that differentiates us from most of our competitors, and of course allows us to make investments in the US, in Silicon Valley, where we compete with the biggest ones. Being a Portuguese investor, the size of the country is very small. And in Europe and also in Israel. So that's in a nutshell, that's why we've invested in these two fantastic companies.
Okay, then I can gather that we should be afraid that if we have another good company here.
Yes. Hopefully we'll be able to invest in, and at least it's in our pipeline, so companies here, based in here, but not only in here. And hopefully we'll be able to invest in more companies, but don't be afraid.
Okay, let's talk later about that. So, Miranda, Cylon is also a very well-known investor company, right? But maybe you target more cybersecurity startups rather than big companies. So what are the programs you offer at Cylon, and how do you help support and grow this ecosystem?
Yeah, sure. So at Cylon, we find, grow, and invest in the world's best emerging cybersecurity businesses. So predominantly early-stage companies, but more and more looking to the later stage startups. And we do this through our acceleration programs. And we run them in hubs in London and Singapore. We've been running programs in London since 2015, and then this year we opened in Singapore. So we've just finished our first group of startups out there, which takes us to about 65 companies now accelerated through the program, including actually Alias Robotics, who are sat in the audience today. Hi, guys. So we've now got a portfolio valued about 200 million, and we're, I think, considered the 5th most active investor in cybersecurity. And we don't invest a lot of money. Actually, we don't deploy much capital per investment, but we have invested across a really wide range of cybersecurity areas.
So you said 300 companies?
No, 65 companies.
65 companies, yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay. That's all of them related to cybersecurity.
Yeah, and then on top of the bigger acceleration program, we also run another program which is focused just on entrepreneurs. So we don't invest in the individual, but we run a boot camp where it's almost like a condensed version of our 3-month program, and it's for individuals who have an idea in cybersecurity but haven't yet formulated a company. So maybe they're in education, finishing a PhD, or maybe they're just sat in a corporate, working a job that they don't want to work in anymore, and they'd love to become an entrepreneur, but they don't really know, one, whether their product has market fit. They might not have a co-founder. They may lack in confidence of how to actually build a business, and we run a program where they come to us for a very intensive week of training and mentoring, and we introduce them to the idea of starting a company.
Thank you. Well, some time ago, some months ago, looking at LinkedIn, all the crap we have with LinkedIn, but there are nice things also. So I found something which is called the Cyber Startup Observatory, which is an effort that they are doing on trying to map all the cybersecurity startups on some slides, right? There are slides of many countries. You can see a slide of other startups from Spain, from Israel, from the United States, from France, whatever, even probably Germany. I found that there was a slide for Spain, and I could count for around 25 startup companies from Spain. Well, I just make a check, and I saw that around 1/3 of those companies have at least an office in the Basque Country, right? So 7 has headquarters, and another one has an office. Question, Sandra, this is what we have. So I think that Basque Country is very good in this sense. We have a lot of startups here. Which is the situation in Germany? I didn't look at that slide of the Germany part. So.
Yes, sure. In Germany, we have also a lot of startups, of course, and I am from the state Bavarian, and this is the 3rd strongest region or state with startups. First is Berlin, and North Rhine-Westphalia. And in Bavaria, we have a strong startup scene because the ecosystem is very great there. Means the politics, the government, the great economies, and the startups and universities working very close together. And this is, in my opinion, the reason why startup regions or states are very strong. It's also in Berlin and in North Rhine-Westphalia. And let me tell you one example. Two of the most powerful startups in my region, they were the best of the German startups. They were created, and they are founded from the University of Applied Science, and they get the support from a team of professions, of the government. Also, it's very important to get the support from the economy, because a lot of startups do not meet the market needs, and this is very important to, when startups are founded, to get the support there. So, thank you.
Thank you. So let's come back now to the Basque Country, Aitor. My question is, why do you think that we are such a powerful region on cybersecurity companies? It's not only about that around 2/3 of the of the startups come from here, but also, I mean, there are very powerful companies, not only startups, but also now Sonae companies, for instance, or many other companies that provide services.
Well, I'm sure there are several reasons that explain why we have such a powerful, if we can say, cybersecurity sector here in the Basque Country. Although it's also true, we shouldn't forget that we still have a very long way to do. But anyway, I would say that in this IoT environment, in this Internet of Things world, in which everything is connected to the Internet, Basque companies are more and more aware of the risks of having all kinds of resources, that's to say machines, tools, products connected to the Internet. And as we know, here in the Basque Country, we have a pretty high number of companies that in their way to Industry 4.0 concepts could be, I would say, a very interesting and potential clients for these cybersecurity companies. And that's why I guess that this is one of the reasons for having such an important cybersecurity sector here in the Basque Country, because the Basque Country, in its way towards Industry 4.0 concepts, is a potential good market for the cybersecurity sector. And additionally, I would also say that we wouldn't have been able to do all this without very talented and very skilled people that some years ago had this vision and started cybersecurity companies. Those people were very important those days because they started different kind of cybersecurity companies, but are also being very important these days because they are somehow opening the path, opening the way to new entrepreneurs in the cybersecurity field.
Okay. So I agree with you, but I think we have to make it clear, right? Because we also all the time say that connectivity and our industrial area makes it that cybersecurity companies emerge and provide solutions to this. But it is true that the startup, so the big companies and consultancy do this job, right? But the startups, they play more in the niche market. So not all the customers, or maybe not the target of these startups are this industry right now. Well, maybe it's more what you said, it's in our blood to make this kind of company?
In my opinion, it's good news to have different kind of cybersecurity companies and startups here in the Basque Country. I would say that it's a matter of business strategy, market strategy, or business model strategy. And actually, we have cybersecurity startups that are offering services to the industry, and this is okay, as well as we have cybersecurity companies and startups that are trying to develop their products and technologies and prototypes, and this is fantastic. And we also have cybersecurity startups and companies that are trying to attend the needs of other kind of sectors that are not industrial, and this is also necessary. Well, in my opinion, everything is positive, taking into account that cybersecurity is an issue that affects all kinds of sectors and companies.
Okay, true. So I thought one of the soundest programs you have pushed from the Basque government is Bind 4.0, right? Can you explain some details about it, about this program, how it helps the startups to develop their projects?
Well, Bind 4.0, that means Basque Industry 4.0, but also tries to express the idea to bind, to link, to connect big corporates with startups, is a startup accelerators program in which the Basque government and some of the main corporates located here in the Basque Country, such as Mercedes, Petronor, Iberdrola, Gestamp, Euskaltel, Arnova, Michelin, CAF, Danovat, and many, many others, we all together try to collaborate in order to support startups from all over the world. Bind 4.0 has mainly two objectives. On the one hand, it tries to foster open innovation among the big corporates, trying somehow to enhance their collaboration with the startups. And on the other hand, it tries to accelerate, it tries to foster, it tries to speed up the growth of the selected startup, giving them great opportunities to develop real projects with big corporates, to sign real contracts with big corporates, also trying to give them the opportunity to have a real invoicing, to have an important client reference so that they can use them in their future commercial activities. And to make all this possible, once a year we launch an international call for startups that in its last edition, for instance, had more than 500 startups applying from 63 different countries all over the world. And so we can say that thanks to BIM 4.0, big corporates are being able to access to the talent, to the technology, to the knowledge, to the products and solutions of the startups so that they can improve their companies. And the startups are being able to have these great opportunities to show, to demonstrate their capabilities, their knowledge, talent, technology, and they are also being able to have real invoicing, to have real contracts with big corporates, and of course, and I would say that mainly, are being able to have fantastic client references that will surely enable to open new doors in their future commercial activities.
Okay. So Miranda, we have been in some conversations previously, and you told me that you have some similar approaches at Cylon, right? But in another sense, they are government, so probably for them it's easier to bind startups with big companies. How do you do all this? Is it similar, your programs?
Yeah, I think there's many similarities between Bind and Cylon. I mean, ultimately, we are, linking startups to industry figures that will help them grow. So that does include corporates because they are the potential buyers, the customers. But we also introduce the startups to a really wide range of investors, from angel investors through to lots of leading VCs around the world. And particularly in the UK, there's quite a few very nice tax breaks for early stage investors. So we find that actually a lot of angel investors particularly are interested in meeting the startups just because the government have made it so that it's quite beneficial. So there are similarities in that we're linking everything together. Really our focus is on the entrepreneur and really establishing entrepreneurship within cybersecurity because, as we all know, there's a huge skills shortage in cyber, and you've got the government, corporates, both competing for the same pool of talent. And it's quite easy to see that actually going down an entrepreneur's route can be lost, and maybe not as appealing as some of the high salaries offered by big corporates. So we're really trying to kind of bring back that entrepreneur side of cyber because it's very important that innovative solutions are developed, and often that is by startup entrepreneurs rather than in-house at big corporates. So that's our focus.
Okay. Now, well, let's make some open questions, right? So feel free to answer. Let's talk about the challenges because this is the main topic of this roundtable, right? So what are some challenges, at least, of facing these early stage startups in this ecosystem? How they should overcome these challenges? Maybe you want to start.
Yeah, sure. I think actually the very nature of building a cybersecurity product has a challenge in the sense that inherent in it is security. So it's far harder to build the trust with the potential customer because ultimately you have to secure that what they want you to secure. And it's very different from other startup businesses that, customers will trial the product. If it doesn't work well, it's fine, they'll move on. It's not detrimental to their business. So cybersecurity companies, I think, inherently have a harder time building the trust and building the rapport with potential customers. And I think that's, always combined with, there's always a risk factor as a corporate working with early stage startups because, for a variety of reasons. So it's really about finding that low risk model of how startups can work with big corporates and big corporates can access the innovation that startups have. So that's one reason we work with a lot of big corporates because we run such a heavy due diligence process on all the companies that come onto our program and a very rigorous application process that the corporates almost kind of pass the risk onto us. And so actually by buying some of the products that our startups build, they already know that they've kind of, ticked a lot of the due diligence boxes.
Good. Any other on the challenges of the startups?
In the case of the Basque Country, in spite of being aware that we still have plenty of challenges and many improvable areas, I would like to highlight or remark three things that, in my opinion, are very important. Three things that could be called the 3 M's because they are money, market, and mentorship. Money
could be money, money, and money, right? Actually,
money because we believe that it's necessary to support these kind of startups with different kinds of financial instruments in such a way they can have gasoline, they can have oxygen in order to grow, to invest, to develop their products, prototypes, technologies in these early stages. Market, because in my opinion, it's very important to give them visibility and market opportunities so that they can have access to what, in my opinion, is the best, the most important, and the most valuable financing and funding source, and that is the money of the market, the money of the clients. And third, mentorship. I think a good mentorship is critical in these early stages. And at this point, I'm pretty sure that cybersecurity entrepreneurs that started those companies here in the Basque Country many years ago could play a very important role, as they are already playing in some cases as advisors of those new promoters that are appearing here in the Basque Country.
Right. Any comment?
So I can comment that, and I pretty much agree what you've said. So there's the way we see it, there's a funding gap. So the European startups, it's more true depending on some of the countries, smaller, bigger, but there's this funding gap, meaning that European startups are not competing on a level playing field when compared to the US or when compared to Israel, for example. And that has to do also with the financing and the way the funds are structured. And so there's this urgent need in Europe to launch more initiatives, more private investors, public monies. There's also the very important role of institutions like the European Investment Fund. There's also another important point, and Aitor mentioned it, which is Europe for cybersecurity, and when you operate on a business-to-business market, Europe is not a single market. So if you start a company in Portugal, for example, or if you start a company in a small country, so hardly that market will fulfill your expansion needs. So you most likely need to become international. And that's a challenge in itself. So this is very important to bear in mind. And that's I would say that's...
Let's bind this answer with the funding part, if you want, right?
There's another point that I would like to comment related with corporates, because I've seen this happening. There's a challenge whenever you launch an initiative and you are deploying a technology and you have a big corporate quite close. Of course, Silent must know how to manage this, but you have to struggle in order to not be captive of that corporate, those corporate needs.
Yep.
So you need to focus on deploying a product that applies to the entire world. And the risk here is becoming captive. So you need to balance this challenge very well.
Okay. So all of the four are more or less companies that also help these startups on growing, right? So let's talk a little bit about funding. I think it's important. Probably in your area, Aitor, there are public numbers on how much you can help to a startup with money. I really went to the Silo website and I saw a clear number, right? So you provide £15,000, so it's almost 70,000 euros in a return of a 3% of equity stake. So do you think this is an optimum value for a startup? I mean, they have to get their salaries, and so how much do they do with this? A couple of months, 3, or they need more?
Yeah, so we just invest a very small amount in each company. So we don't deploy a lot of capital in each, but it allows them to have runway, at least for the duration of our program, which is 3 months. You know, a lot of companies are at a later stage and actually don't choose to take the money because they just don't need that runway. And others choose to, maybe that's hiring their second team member. Or maybe that is, you know, moving to London to join the program, you know, like refining what their product is. Some companies that we work with haven't built the product, so they spend the money on, you know, actually building it. Others are a bit later and they spend the money on marketing. So there's definitely different spends, and it's something that right now this is the amount we invest. Over the next kind of 6 to 12 months, I think that will change as we look to invest not only a higher amount, but also at other stages of their life cycle.
Okay, Sandra, do you also have this kind of well, entrepreneurship supporting programs at the Bavarian cluster?
Yes, of course. There are some sort of supporting programs in Bavarian. It's called Flüge. It's for higher education companies. And we also have German programs like Exist for students and graduates and scientific employees. And in the field of digitalization, initial stage of business, we have the Startup Grant Program, and for technology-oriented, the Buy2. And these are all programs for the beginning of the startups. They lasted from 12 to 18 months. And later, they get a seed for financial or accelerator programs from companies. And as you told it before, the most important is really to need the market and to get financial from the economy. And I think this is the most important, yeah.
Okay. So, Carlos, you also have, I look at your website, and you also have an opportunity for startups in order to ask for funding. 17,000 euros, is it more for you?
No, it's
that stake, or maybe you get more sharing, or?
No, the thing is, so we are very focused in terms of the areas where we invest in, and as I mentioned, that partly comes from the feedback we get from the MSSPs, but we are broad in terms of stage of investment. So we actually created an incubator, a small incubator, aimed at pre-seed, very early stage investments. But the way we try to work is trying to leverage the assets we have. So starting with the expertise, with the market knowledge, mostly in Europe, and we try to guide the teams. So 2 people, 3 people. We try to guide them to the market needs, because most of the time we are talking about tech guys that are not aware of a market out there, so that's a challenge. And then we try to bring on board investors that can complement what we bring to the table. So we can help on financing, and we are check sizes, so the smallest one can be 100K, something like that, and we invest and then several million, but it depends on the stage. But we try at each of the stages, for example, when a certain company needs to expand to the US, we help the company within our networking to bring, at least to pitch, and of course we help on the pitch, the right investors that have a track record helping companies to expand on the US market, for example.
It's not just about money, but it depends on.
No, we are definitely not seen as.
It's not just about money. It's
we are definitely not seen as just money. At least we like to think that's true.
Okay, so we ran out of time, but I think you should have the opportunity also to explain which are the programs that startups have within the Basque country.
Yes, we actually have different kinds of programs and instruments, but it would take very long to explain them all. So if you agree, I will try to introduce them in a very, very short and brief way. First, we have a pre-seed program that is called Ekintzaile, in which we offer small grants of 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 euros in order to try to turn good ideas and interesting R&D results into new businesses and startups. Second, we have different kind of financial instruments such as Basquefondo, Aurrera, different venture capital funds, Gauzatu, and so on, through which we try to offer different formulas of soft loans and equity funding. And third, we have the already commented BIM 4.0 that tries to offer very important and interesting market opportunities for the startups. And to make all this possible, we try to manage all these programs together with our business innovation centers that are geographically located in different places in the Basque Country. Business innovation centers that are also in charge of offering, for instance, different kind of training and mentorship sessions and services for the startups. So, as you can see, we try all together, and of course, together, collaborating together with the private sector to somehow make it easier for the promoters.
So, summarizing, if now I have a permanent position at the university, right? But if I would like to be more entrepreneur and start with my startup, I think that now is a very good moment because there are a lot of opportunities to get funded and to start and to help with it, right?
And you are based in the Basque Country, so for Sonae, of course, it makes all the sense in the world.
Okay, thank you very much, and now it's time to lunch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.